Massachusetts, Fort Sumter, and the Lewinsky Scandal are all on this day. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is August 17th, 2022. It is the 229th day of the year. There are 136 days left. It's your 33rd Wednesday in your 34th week and the 58th day of summer. Got a little over a month until fall. And if it's your birthday, you're still a Leo. Today is National Massachusetts Day. National Massachusetts Day on April 17th recognizes the first New England colony and the sixth state to join the Union. Massachusetts is named after the indigenous people who populated the area when explorers first arrived. It became an incubator for independence, education, industry, and smallpox at one point. If you know the history of Massachusetts, it's probably no surprise that the state earned the nickname the Cradle of Liberty. After all, Massachusetts hosted the founding of the Sons of Liberty and the Boston Tea Party. All right, let's see what else happened on August 17th. 1862, the American Indian Wars. The Dakota War of 1862 begins in Minnesota as Dakota warriors attack white settlements along the Minnesota River. 1863, the American Civil War. In Charleston, South Carolina, Union batteries and ships bombard Confederate-held Fort Sumter. Now, at the beginning of the war, this was held by a small contingent of Union forces, and they actually had a little dust-up, and they bombarded the fort, and the fort filled with Union soldiers had a little bit of a problem. This was a coastal battery. It was designed to protect it from the sea, not the land where the Confederate forces were firing upon, so they had a disadvantage. But in the end, after bombardment and a little bit of a battle, nobody was killed. But the Union commander decided that the situation was hopeless and they would just all be killed and nothing would come out of it. They surrendered. And oddly enough, no one got killed during the battle, but they were having a surrender type ceremony and something sparked some explosives and like 3 Union soldiers were killed at the surrender ceremony. That was in 1861. Here they are, 1863, and the Union shows up and they want the fort back. This wasn't the first or the last time that the Union Navy decided to bombard Fort Sumter. 1864, the American Civil War again. The Battle of Gainesville. Confederate forces defeat Union troops near Gainesville, Florida. 1942, World War II. U.S. Marines raid the Japanese-held Pacific island of Macon. So this is a really interesting one. It was one of the first things of combat that a very distinguished unit for the Marines had. They were the Marine Raiders. During World War II, they had a lot of lightly defended islands around the Pacific, and Admiral Chester Nimitz said he wanted a specially trained unit of raiders and commandos, sort of like the British commandos. These were light infantry units that weren't really designed to do any combat with any real large units like a tank battalion or an infantry battalion that probably had a couple hundred men. They were designed to get behind enemy lines and attack smaller targets. Maybe blow up some bridges, get some intel from a radio tower, things like that. Well, Admiral Nimitz and actually the President Roosevelt at the time, they kind of leaned on a Marine major named Evans Carlson. He was friends with President Roosevelt's son and President Roosevelt. He actually was in charge of a detachment of Marines that was in Warm Springs where President Roosevelt was a lot. He had studied different guerrilla tactics, so he was a perfect fit for this, even though the Marines didn't really like him, because a lot of the command knew that he kind of held liberal views and communist views, and he kind of sympathized with the Chinese, and it was just kind of weird that they really didn't want him, but he was the perfect fit for the job at hand. And he developed the Marine Raiders, and he led them on the Macon Island raid along with President Roosevelt's son as his second in command. For the raid, there was a total of 211 Marine Raiders and 2 submarines. The submarine surfaced under the cover of night. They boarded rubber rafts and got to the island. The raid had its ups and its downs, and by all accounts, it was a successful raid. Getting back to the submarines was a bit of a problem. Now, I could do a whole hour on the raid itself, but I suggest you actually go watch the movie Gung Ho. Yeah, it was done in like the 1950s, and it tells the story of this raid. In total, 19 Marines were killed, 17 wounded, 9 were captured and later executed, 2 are considered missing in action. For the Japanese, they lost about 46 soldiers, 2 flying boats were destroyed, along with 2 small gunboats. The 9 men that were executed were captured. They had been on one of the rafts during the evacuation that got separated from the main body of the guys evacuating and never made it back to the lifeboats. The commander thought that they were on another submarine, and everyone thought they had everyone that was still alive. They weren't. In 1947, the commander of the island for the Japanese was captured and charged with war crimes because of the executions. He was executed himself. When the U.S. took the island again in 1943, they tried to find the graves of these men that were executed, and they just never found them. They weren't actually found until 1999 when they found a mass grave and they did DNA testing and found out who these soldiers were. About 6 of them were returned to families for burial, and 3 who didn't have any family left or couldn't be contacted, they were buried at Arlington National Cemetery. 1962, Peter Fetcher is shot and bleeds to death while trying to cross the New Berlin Wall. 1976, a magnitude 7.9 earthquake hits off the coast of the Philippines, triggering a destructive tsunami killing between 5,000 and 8,000 people and leaving more than 90,000 homeless. That's a rough tsunami. 1998, the Lewinsky Scandal. President Bill Clinton admits in taped testimony that he had an improper physical relationship with White House intern Monica Lewinsky. Later that same day, he admits before the nation that he misled the people about the relationship. That was just insane time for this country. That was just such a mess. Premiered on August 17th today. She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. This is another Marvel one. And the reason I bring this one up, I don't think they should have done it. There's way better characters in the Marvel catalog that they could have gone with before She-Hulk. I mean, even way better female characters. Spider-Woman. Yes, there is a Spider-Woman in case you don't know. The Wasp, Jubilee, Domino, Echo. There's a list of them. I don't know. I'm just ranting. Anyway, The She-Hulk is a half-hour legal comedy series based on the Marvel comic character. The series aims to achieve something that the Marvel Cinematic Universe hasn't done yet, and that's comedy and a legal thing. It's supposed to be like the legal system version of Scrubs, remember that? The hospital one? But with superheroes. I don't know. I'll watch an episode, tell you what I think. Born on August 17th, 1958, the amazing Belinda Carlisle, lead singer of the all-female pop group The Go-Go's. I was in love with her when I was like 14. Her and Linda Ronstadt. Oh, if you're under the age of 30 and have no idea who I'm talking about, you've really missed out. The Go-Go's were admitted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2021. She released her biography called Lips Unsealed in 2010. I never read that, and it just reminded me I wanted to read it. I heard it was amazing. It was pretty interesting, at least. I got to see that. It reached number 27 on the New York Times bestseller list. She started her music career as a drummer for the punk band The Germs. Her and Jane Wiedlin are the only 2 Go-Go's that have been Go-Go's the whole time. Charlotte Caffey, Kathy Valentine, and Gina Schock all showed up later on, like a couple years after they started. Died on August 17th, 1979, Vivian Vance. American actress and singer. She was Ethel on I Love Lucy. She had a long career before that. That was towards the end of her career, but she definitely had a very long career. She was born in 1909. Fun fact about I Love Lucy, her and Fred hated each other. Vance suffered a stroke on November 21st, 1977, that left her partially paralyzed. She died at the age of 70 on August 17th, 1979, of breast cancer. After her death, Desi Arnaz, who played Ricky, said, "It's bad enough to lose one of the greatest artists we had the honor and the pleasure to work with, but it's even harder to reconcile the loss of one of your best friends." All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a productive day, and be nice to each other.